Part 1. The Delusional Cripple. A small piece of cheap plastic can hold more justice than a heavy metal badge. My name is Liam. I always wanted to be a police officer. I wanted to protect the weak and fight the monsters in the dark. But my dream was violently crushed on a cold Tuesday morning. The official police academy rejected my application completely. They did not care about my brilliant mind or my perfect test scores. They only looked at my right leg. I wear a heavy metal prosthetic. I lost my real leg saving a child from a burning car many years ago. They called me a disabled liability. They threw me out into the street. The rejection felt like a physical blow to my chest. I returned to my small apartment, feeling entirely useless. I looked at the dark blue police uniform I had carefully sewn for myself. I made a crazy decision. I put on the handmade uniform. I pinned a cheap, plastic toy badge to my chest. I walked out into the dangerous, dark streets of the slum. I was just a delusional man pretending to be a hero. I did not know I was about to start a massive war. I heard a terrified scream coming from a dark alley. 3 armed men were attacking a young woman. I did not hesitate or think about my fake badge. I rushed forward, using my heavy metal leg to kick the first attacker. The element of surprise was my greatest weapon. I fought them with desperate, angry energy. Within minutes, all 3 men were lying on the dirty ground. The young woman looked at my dark blue uniform and my plastic badge. "Thank you so much, officer," she cried, holding my shaking hand. "You saved my life." I did not correct her mistake. I tied the criminals together with heavy plastic ties. The real police always ignored this dangerous neighborhood. They would arrive hours late. I decided to deliver the trash directly to their front door. I dragged the criminals to the central police station in the middle of the night. I tied them to the metal gates of the real police precinct. I left a clear, detailed note with all the evidence of their crime. I signed the note simply, "Inspector Liam, Precinct 99. I walked away into the shadows. The Phantom Precinct was officially born in the dark. I watched the main police station from a safe distance. 2 real officers finally walked outside holding hot coffee. They saw the tied criminals and the detailed evidence note. They looked completely confused. They looked up and down the empty street, searching for the mysterious inspector. They saw absolutely nothing. I smiled for the first time in many months. The city system was incredibly massive, lazy, and broken. There were so many different departments and divisions. No one actually knew every single officer. I realized they would never suspect a fake precinct. They would just assume it was another department. I walked back to my small, quiet apartment. My metal leg ached terribly, but my heart was beating with a beautiful, wild purpose. The city had completely abandoned the poor people in my neighborhood. The real police only protected the rich. Someone had to step into the dark shadows. I looked at my plastic badge in the mirror. It was fake, but the justice I delivered tonight was absolutely real. The academy told me I was useless. I decided to prove them entirely wrong. I was going to build my own police force from the broken pieces of the city. Part 2. Precinct 99. I emptied my entire life savings the very next day. I rented a large, abandoned warehouse in the middle of the poorest district. I cleaned the dirty floors and set up cheap wooden desks. I painted a large, official-looking sign and hung it outside. It proudly announced Precinct 99. I could not fight the criminal underworld alone. I needed a dedicated team. The official police force only hired perfect, clean candidates. I decided to recruit the brilliant people society had completely thrown away. I found my new officers in the dark, forgotten corners of the city. My first recruit was Chloe. She was a genius computer hacker who was fired from a tech company for exposing corporate crimes. My second recruit was Arthur. He was a retired, legendary con artist. He possessed an incredible, terrifying ability to read human psychology and detect lies instantly. My final recruit was David. He was a former military soldier suffering from severe post-traumatic stress disorder. The government abandoned him, but he was fiercely loyal and incredibly brave. I gave them all handmade blue uniforms and cheap plastic badges. We became a family of broken, determined ghosts. Our very first major case arrived a week later. A poor shop owner was brutally murdered in the slum. The Real police arrived, looked at the poor neighborhood, and immediately dismissed the case. They called it a random gang shooting and closed the file in 10 minutes. They did not care. We put on our fake uniforms and drove to the crime scene in a cheap, unmarked black car. The yellow police tape was still hanging from the door. I walked past the nervous neighbors with absolute confidence. I lifted the yellow tape, and our fake team entered the bloody room. Arthur walked around the small shop. His old, sharp eyes scanned the chaotic mess. The real police did not search the room properly. Arthur smiled softly and pointed to a loose wooden board under the cash register. He pulled the board away. A bloody knife was hidden perfectly inside. Chloe used her portable computer to scan the fingerprints on the bloody handle. She hacked into the city database in less than 3 minutes. The fingerprints belonged to a wealthy, powerful businessman who owed the shop owner money. The real police ignored the truth to protect a rich man. David drove our black car directly to the businessman's luxury house. We kicked the front door open. The man laughed at us, thinking he was untouchable. David grabbed him by the shirt and threw him onto the floor. We read him his rights just like real, professional officers. We delivered the screaming, wealthy murderer directly to the central police station. We dropped him at the front desk with the bloody knife and a perfect file of digital evidence. The desk sergeant stared at us in absolute shock. He looked at our professional blue uniforms and quickly saluted us. We walked out of the real police station with our heads held high. The desk sergeant actually thought we were an elite, secret task force from the federal government. Our cheap plastic badges shined brightly in the city lights. Precinct 99 was fully operational, and the streets were finally waking up. Part 3. Trust of the Old Streets. Word travels incredibly fast in the dark, forgotten slums. The poor residents quickly realized that a new, mysterious police force was patrolling their broken streets. We did not ask for bribes. We did not look at them with disgust. We treated every single victim with absolute, undeniable respect. We solved robberies, stopped violent assaults, and returned stolen property to the elderly. We worked day and night in our cheap blue uniforms. The people did not know we were impostors. They only knew that Precinct 99 was the only place in the city that actually cared about their pain. A beautiful, silent rebellion started happening across the poor neighborhoods. The residents stopped calling the official city emergency line. People started printing small, sticky paper labels. They walked to the public phone booths and covered the official 911 numbers. They pasted our direct warehouse phone number right over the original text. Whenever trouble started, the phone in our old warehouse would ring loudly. Chloe would answer it with a calm, professional voice. Precinct 99, what is your emergency? She would type the address quickly. David would grab the car keys. We responded to every call in less than 5 minutes. One busy afternoon, we responded to a massive fight at a local market. We arrived just as a squad car from the real police department pulled up. 2 official, heavily armed officers stepped out. My heart hammered violently against my ribs. The ultimate test of our dangerous disguise had arrived. I stood up straight, ignoring the pain in my metal leg. I walked directly toward the real officers with a cold, authoritative glare. I held up my cheap plastic badge. Inspector Liam, Precinct 99. I said sharply. We are taking full control of this crime scene. Step back and secure the perimeter. The 2 real officers looked at my stern face. They looked at David's perfect military posture and Chloe's expensive-looking computer equipment. The city bureaucracy was so confusing that they completely doubted themselves. They actually thought I was a high-ranking commander from a special unknown division. Yes, sir. Understood, sir. The real officers nodded nervously. They immediately stepped back and started pushing the crowd away, following my fake orders perfectly. They actively helped us arrest the violent suspects. Arthur stood in the background, hiding a massive smile behind his hand. The illusion was absolutely flawless. We threw the suspects into the back of our car. I gave the real officers a firm, respectful nod. You men did a fine job today, I said confidently. Keep the streets safe. The real officers smiled proudly, honored by the fake praise. We drove away, leaving them completely fooled. We returned to the warehouse, breathing heavily with pure adrenaline. We had successfully commanded the actual police force. The trust of the streets was completely ours. We were bringing true, honest light to the darkest corners of the city. But the brightest light always casts the darkest, most dangerous shadow. Part 4. The Suspicious Silence. 6 long, exhausting months passed. Our phantom precinct was a massive, undeniable success. We cleaned the dirty streets completely. But inside the luxurious, expensive office of the real local police chief, a very dark storm was brewing. Chief Marcus was staring at his official computer screen with pure, terrified confusion. The crime rate statistics for the slum district were completely impossible. The system showed a 0% crime rate for the past 3 months. No murders, no robberies, and absolutely no emergency calls were registered. The official 911 dispatch center had received complete, total silence from the poorest neighborhood. Chief Marcus was not smiling. He was not proud of this incredible, peaceful statistic. He was sweating profusely, his hands shaking in violent anger. He did not care about the safety of the poor citizens. Marcus was a deeply corrupt, evil man. He was looking at his secret, illegal bank accounts. The money from the underground drug cartels and the protection rackets had suddenly stopped flowing into his pockets. The violent gangs paying him massive bribes were complaining bitterly. They told Marcus that a crazy, highly trained police task force was actively destroying all their illegal businesses in the slum. Marcus slammed his fists onto his expensive desk. He checked the official city police roster. He checked the federal task force databases. There were no official police operations assigned to that district. He realized that a rogue, unknown element was actively stealing his dirty money and destroying his criminal empire. Marcus ordered his corrupt detectives to search the slums secretly. They returned a few hours later, looking completely confused. A detective placed a small, crumpled piece of paper on the chief's desk. It was a cheap, handmade flyer. It advertised the direct emergency phone number for Precinct 99. Marcus stared at the flyer. His blood ran completely cold. There was no Precinct 99 in the entire history of the city. He realized that a group of dangerous, bold impostors was mocking his authority. They were stealing his territory and ruining his illegal wealth while wearing fake police uniforms. A dark, murderous rage consumed the corrupt chief. These fake cops were a massive threat to his freedom. If they arrested the wrong gang member, his entire corrupt network would be exposed to the federal government. He had to eliminate them immediately, violently, and completely without any mercy. Marcus picked up his private radio. He did not call regular patrol officers. He contacted his personal, highly corrupted SWAT commander. Assemble the tactical strike team immediately. Marcus ordered with a cold, deadly voice. We have a severe terrorist threat in the slum. We are going to burn Precinct 99 to the ground. The quiet, peaceful silence in the slum was about to be violently shattered. Our fake badges had protected us from the innocent and the lazy. But they could not protect us from a cornered, desperate monster wearing a real badge. The Phantom Precinct was finally exposed to the brutal light. Part 5. The Historic Confrontation. The loud, terrifying roar of heavy armored engines shook our old warehouse. I looked out the broken window. For massive, black SWAT trucks surrounded our building. Dozens of heavily armed men poured out into the street, pointing dangerous assault rifles directly at our front door. The illusion was finally over. Chief Marcus stepped out of a black car. He held a loudspeaker, his voice echoing cruelly in the quiet street. Come out with your hands up. You are under arrest for impersonating police officers and acts of terrorism. Marcus shouted. He did not plan to arrest us. He planned a complete massacre. My team looked at me with deep, terrified eyes. We had no real weapons. We only had cheap plastic badges and empty stun guns. We are going to die today, Liam. David whispered, his military instincts recognizing the deadly trap. They are not here to take prisoners. They are here to execute us. I took a deep breath. I refused to let my brave team die in the dark. I pushed the heavy warehouse doors open. I walked out into the bright searchlights, my hands raised high. I limped heavily on my metal leg. I am Inspector Liam. I shouted confidently. We surrender peacefully. Chief Marcus smiled a cold, evil smile. He raised his hand, signaling the SWAT snipers on the surrounding roofs. He was going to claim I reached for a weapon. He was going to murder me in cold blood to protect his dirty money. The red laser sights painted my chest completely. Fire! Marcus screamed into the dark night. But before a single shot could echo through the street, a massive, deafening roar erupted from behind the SWAT trucks. Hundreds of people were marching down the street. The entire population of the slum had arrived in the freezing dark. Old women, angry teenagers, and tired factory workers surrounded the heavily armed SWAT team. They carried wooden bats, rusty metal pipes, and broken glass bottles. The citizens formed a massive, human wall between me and the corrupt police officers. They stood fiercely to protect the phantom precinct. "These are our cops," a brave old woman shouted, pointing a wooden stick at Chief Marcus. "They saved my grandson. They returned my stolen money. If you want to shoot them, you have to shoot all of us first." The massive crowd roared in angry agreement, stepping closer to the tactical team. The SWAT officers nervously lowered their weapons. They were trained to shoot criminals, not massacre hundreds of innocent, angry civilians in the street. The situation was completely out of control. Marcus looked at the massive crowd in pure, absolute shock. He realized he could not win this public war. "Fall back," Marcus ordered furiously, his face turning bright red with intense humiliation. The SWAT team retreated slowly into their armored trucks. The heavy vehicles drove away, escaping the wrath of the broken city. I fell to my knees, crying silent tears. The fake badge had earned the most real, powerful love imaginable. Part 6. The Badged Devil. We survived the massacre, but we knew Marcus would never stop hunting us. We had to destroy him before he found another way to kill us in the dark. Chloe used her brilliant computer skills to track the encrypted phone signals from Marcus's private radio. She found his secret location. Marcus was operating his dirty business from an abandoned factory near the docks. We drove there silently in the middle of the night. David used his military training to bypass the guards and unlock the back door. We moved through the dark building like ghosts, searching for the absolute truth. We found a hidden, luxurious office inside the dirty factory. Arthur picked the lock on a heavy metal safe. Inside, we found a thick, black leather book. It was a detailed, handwritten accounting ledger. The book contained the names of every drug dealer, every corrupted politician, and every illegal bribe. Marcus was not just taking a few dirty bribes. He was the absolute king of the city's drug trade. He controlled the poison destroying the streets. But as Chloe read the final pages of the ledger, she gasped in pure, absolute horror. She found a section labeled Emergency Communications. The super twist hit us with devastating, sickening force. We always wondered why the real police never responded to the slum. We thought they were just lazy and racist. But the truth was far more evil. Marcus had intentionally severed the 911 emergency lines for the entire poor district. When a woman was being assaulted or a shop was being robbed, their desperate calls never reached the official police dispatch. Marcus had actively turned off their cries for help. He did this to allow his violent gangs to operate freely without any annoying police interference. He isolated the slum completely. Our Phantom Precinct was so successful because Chloe had accidentally tapped into the dead radio frequency Marcus abandoned. We were intercepting the desperate calls that the city had intentionally blocked. We were not stealing the police's job. We were doing a job the city had officially, violently refused to do. Marcus was intentionally feeding innocent people to the wolves to make millions of dollars. He was an absolute devil wearing a shiny legal badge. I held the black ledger tightly against my chest. The anger inside me burned hotter than ever before. We finally had the weapon to destroy the monster. We sneaked out of the factory before the sun came up. We returned to our warehouse, holding the ultimate proof of a massive, citywide conspiracy. I was ready to send the book to the federal government. I thought the war was finally over. I was completely, terribly wrong. Part 7. The Meaningless Evidence. We sat around the old wooden table in the warehouse. The black ledger rested in the center, representing our final, glorious victory. I told Chloe to prepare a secure, encrypted email to the FBI headquarters. We were going to expose Marcus and save the entire city from his corrupt grip. Arthur sat quietly in the corner, reading a legal textbook. The old con artist suddenly slammed the book shut. His face was completely pale. "Liam, stop," Arthur whispered, his voice trembling with deep fear. "You cannot send that ledger to the FBI. It is completely useless. It will destroy us instead." I stared at him in complete confusion. "What are you talking about?" I demanded angrily. "The book proves he is a drug lord. It proves he cut the emergency lines. We have him trapped." Arthur shook his head slowly, pointing a shaking finger at my cheap plastic badge. "We are not real police officers, Liam," Arthur explained softly. "We broke into a building without a legal warrant. We stole private property. According to federal law, this ledger is considered the fruit of the poisonous tree. It is completely illegal, inadmissible evidence. No court in the country can ever use it." The terrifying reality paralyzed my mind. If we sent the book to the FBI, Marcus would just hire expensive lawyers. The lawyers would easily prove the evidence was stolen by impostors. The judge would throw the book out immediately. Marcus would walk away completely free and entirely untouched. But the nightmare was even worse. The FBI would have to arrest us. Arthur continued grimly. We would be exposed as federal criminals who stole evidence and impersonated officers. Marcus would use the FBI to hunt us down. We would spend the rest of our lives in a dark federal prison. The room fell into a heavy, suffocating silence. We had risked our lives to steal the ultimate weapon, only to discover it was made of fragile glass. We were completely trapped by the strict rules of a legal system designed to protect the very monsters we were trying to destroy. David slammed his fist on the table. "We have to burn it," he said angrily. "We have to burn the uniforms, destroy the warehouse, and run away. We lost Liam. We have to disappear tonight before Marcus finds a way to kill us legally. The Phantom Precinct is dead." I looked at the black ledger. I looked at my handmade blue uniform. I thought about the old woman who defended me in the street. I could not abandon them to the devil. I had to find a way to make the illegal evidence perfectly legal. I needed a miracle. Part 8. The Impostor's Decision. The warehouse phone rang loudly, breaking the terrible silence. Chloe answered it nervously. She listened for a moment, her face turning pale. "It is for you," she whispered, handing me the receiver. "It is Chief Marcus. He found our direct line. He wants to talk to the fake inspector." I took the phone, my hand gripping the plastic tightly. "Hello, Marcus," I said coldly. A dark, arrogant laugh echoed through the speaker. "You are a very smart cripple, Liam," Marcus sneered. "I know you stole my book. I also know you cannot use it. You are completely trapped in your own game. I will offer you one final, generous deal." Marcus continued smoothly. "Leave the book in a trash can near the docks tonight. Pack your bags and leave this city forever. If you do this, I will let you and your pathetic friends live. If you refuse, I will slaughter everyone you love." He was absolutely confident. He knew the law protected him perfectly. I looked at my team. They were terrified, waiting for me to accept the deal and save their lives. I took a deep breath. I am an inspector of Precinct 99. I replied firmly. We do not negotiate with terrorists. I slammed the phone down, hanging up on the corrupt devil. David grabbed my shirt aggressively. Are you crazy? He shouted. He is going to kill us. We have no moves left. I gently pushed David's hands away. I looked at the black ledger. I have one move left, I said quietly. I walked to my locker. I put on my handmade blue uniform very carefully. I shined my cheap plastic badge until it looked perfect. I grabbed a heavy roll of duct tape, some loose wires, and a small, flashing red alarm clock. I started building a very strange, terrifying device. What are you doing? Chloe asked, tears filling her eyes. I am going to make the evidence completely legal. I explained softly. I am going to force the federal government to confiscate the book directly from a fresh crime scene. But I have to do it completely alone. You all must leave now. I gave them strict orders to erase the computer hard drives and disappear into the night. I hugged them each tightly. They were the best police officers I had ever known. I hid the black ledger inside my jacket. I walked out of the warehouse, ready to face the absolute end. I walked toward the central police station in the heart of the city. I was no longer a phantom hiding in the shadows. I was walking directly into the brightest, most dangerous light. I was about to commit the most beautiful, terrible crime in the history of the city. Part 9. The Criminal's Move. I walked straight through the front doors of the Central Police Station. Real officers walked past me, assuming I was just a regular cop returning from a night patrol. My fake uniform was a perfect, invisible shield. I walked directly to the top floor, heading straight for the chief's private office. I opened the heavy wooden door without knocking. Chief Marcus was sitting at his large desk, drinking expensive whiskey. He looked up, his eyes widening in absolute, terrified shock. You! He gasped, dropping his glass. How did you get in here? I locked the heavy door behind me with a loud click. I pulled my jacket open. Strapped tightly to my chest was a mess of thick wires and a flashing red digital clock. It looked exactly like a highly dangerous, massive explosive device. Marcus screamed in pure terror, falling backward out of his expensive leather chair. Do not move, I commanded coldly. I pulled my cell phone from my pocket and activated a live video broadcast on every major social media platform. I pointed the camera directly at Marcus. I am taking the chief of police hostage. I shouted loudly, ensuring the entire world could hear me. I have a bomb strapped to my chest. The super, shocking twist was finally set in motion. By taking a high-ranking official hostage with a bomb, I instantly committed a massive, undeniable federal crime. I became a major terrorist on live television. The local police could not handle this. The FBI and the National Guard were immediately mobilized. Marcus cried on the floor, begging for his life. You are insane. He sobbed violently. What do you want? I pulled the black ledger from my pocket and threw it onto his desk. I do not want anything from you, I whispered softly. I just needed the FBI to invite themselves into your office. Loud sirens wailed outside the building. Heavy helicopters surrounded the roof. The FBI tactical team blew the heavy office door off its hinges with a massive explosion. Dozens of federal agents rushed into the room, pointing laser rifles directly at my head. Get down! They screamed furiously. I dropped to my knees immediately and raised my hands. I did not fight. The bomb squad rushed forward and carefully removed the device from my chest. "It is fake," a technician shouted in confusion. "It is just an alarm clock and duct tape." The room fell into chaotic confusion. I looked at the lead FBI agent. "I am a terrorist," I stated clearly. "I demand you confiscate all items in this room as evidence for my trial, especially that black book on the desk." The FBI agent frowned, but he followed standard federal procedure. He grabbed the ledger and placed it into a plastic evidence bag. The brilliant, desperate plan was completely successful. By becoming a federal terrorist, I forced the FBI to legally seize the book directly from Marcus's office during an active crime scene. The evidence was no longer the fruit of a poisonous tree. It was now 100% legal, undeniable proof. Marcus was completely destroyed. Part 10. The Invisible Badge. The FBI agents dragged Marcus out of the office in heavy iron chains. He screamed and cursed my name, realizing the trap I had perfectly designed. The federal accountants opened the black ledger. The horrific truth about the drug empire and the severed emergency lines was finally exposed to the bright light of the law. Marcus was sentenced to spend the rest of his life in a maximum security prison. His entire corrupt network was completely dismantled. The city government was forced to apologize to the slum district. They reconnected the emergency lines and sent real, honest police officers to protect the vulnerable streets. My trial was short and heavily publicized. The judge looked at me with a mixture of deep confusion and profound respect. However, the law is completely blind. I had faked a bomb threat and taken a hostage. I stood in front of the court and proudly pleaded guilty to every single charge. I refused to mention Chloe, Arthur, or David. I took the entire blame entirely on my own shoulders. I protected my phantom team from any legal punishment. The judge sentenced me to 15 long years in a federal prison. I accepted the heavy sentence with a calm, peaceful smile. I traded my handmade blue uniform for a rough, bright orange prison jumpsuit. Heavy metal chains wrapped tightly around my wrists and my ankles. 2 massive guards escorted me toward the heavy steel doors of the federal penitentiary. I dragged my metal leg, feeling incredibly tired but wonderfully light. As I walked down the long, gray corridor, something beautiful and entirely unexpected happened. The heavily armed prison guards standing by the gates did not look at me with disgust. They stopped talking. They stood perfectly straight. As I passed them, every single guard raised their hand in a crisp, formal salute. They knew exactly what I had done. The entire law enforcement community knew the truth. I had sacrificed my own freedom to destroy an evil monster that the system could not touch. I walked into the dark prison cell, but I was not a criminal. I sat on the hard, metal bed. I looked at my chest. The cheap plastic badge was gone, confiscated by the evidence room. But I finally understood the truth. The badge is not made of plastic or heavy metal. The true badge is carved directly into the human heart. I will spend 15 years in a dark cell. But outside these thick walls, the streets are finally safe. Precinct 99 does not exist on any official map, but its spirit will live forever in the shadows. I am Inspector Liam, and I have never been more proud to wear the invisible badge of absolute justice.